Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty RoundTable Radio Talk Show.
Happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. Sam Bushman live on your radio. Hard-hitting news the networks refuse to use, no doubt, continues now. This is the broadcast for August the 14th in the year of our Lord 2025, hour 2 at 2. Promoting God, family, country, protecting life, liberty, and property, rejecting revolution unless it's a Jesus revolution, standing with the Prince of Peace as we use the incredible checks and balances brilliantly put in place by the Founding Fathers in the supreme law of our land, the Constitution for the United States of America. I'm Sam Bushman. Last hour, I played armchair quarterback, man, and I threw a zinger. Our guest coming up here in a minute, Lew Moore, well-known expert in politics, author, talk show host, just a great, great guy. Anyway, we'll talk to him in a second, but I want to quickly summarize last hour. You know, I made several points. I believe Trump is making a lot of mistakes regarding this, quote, summit with Vladimir Putin. And I don't mean to attack the Donald. I know he's supposedly the art of the deal guy, but I don't think he's negotiating from a very good position at all. He wants to meet with Vladimir, but he's been funding the Ukraine side of the war for a long time. Big money, lots of arms, training troops, wow. And now he wants to sit down and economically push Putin around. I don't think that's going to go very well. Now, they're meeting in Alaska, which is going to be a disputed territory. Russia believes they should have Alaska. I don't agree, but I'm just telling you, that alone is a power play by the Donald. Meeting in a military base in Alaska. Now you're going to make this a military discussion by inference of your meeting selection? Why don't you meet in a neutral place? Why don't you meet in a place that relates to the civilian world, not the military world? Anyway, very, very, in my opinion, concerning. Because it sets the stage where you've got already Putin on the defense, but the strongman Putin's going to roll into there. He's fine. I believe he's actually got a stronger position than we think because Ukraine's been losing this war big time. All right, so here's the details. White House not inviting Zelensky to Alaska summit. I don't know how you stop a war that's not our war. Now, we say it's Biden's war, but if it's really Biden's war and Congress never declared war, then Biden's a war criminal. Nevertheless, Trump's carried out and funded Biden's war, so it's really Trump's war too. But why are we even in a war? Congress hasn't declared one. I thought it was between Russia and Ukraine. Why do we need to be involved at all? So you're going to leave Zelensky out of the discussions of how to stop war between Putin and Zelensky? Is it somehow we're the one that has to be negotiated with? Putin praises Trump on eve of summit. Why would Putin do that? Because he goes in like a smiling, peaceful, this guy's an old KGB agent, man. Now, I'm not here to attack Russia. I'm just saying. Now, even before the Alaska summit, headline says Putin is redrawing global order to his liking, MSN.com. Is that really happening? To some degree, yes. Europe pushes Trump on red lines in Alaska. TheHill.com. So red lines, what are we going to give? What are we going to put on the table? What are no-nos? And the reporter even asked, we played a soundbite last hour, will there be consequences for Putin if he doesn't do what you want? Trump says absolutely yes. Russia bringing the big guns to Alaska. Trump bringing art of the deal. NATO in the EU has been dismissed. SelfReliantCentral.com. It's the Trump doctrine. Commerce, not chaos. I agree with that. But at Friday's Alaska summit with Putin, Trump will arrive with a deal that Putin can't ignore. Rare earths, oil, and sanction relief, all in exchange for ending the war. Now, I ended, after all these points, by saying I just don't really see what we have to gain by being there in the first place. We need to avoid these foreign entanglements, not lead them. They say there's going to be a second summit if this goes well tomorrow. That'll be on a neutral European country's turf. It'll be with Zelensky and Putin and Trump at that point. Okay, but if you're Zelensky, you're feeling pretty, spanked right now. At the same time, we've been funding Zelensky big time, right? Is that funding going to continue? Very, very strange. Would the war even be continuing if we weren't funding Zelensky? Fair question. Well, anyway, I ended on this point because in this discussion, you can debate all day who's right, who's wrong, what foreign policy is best, all that stuff. But I know the Founding Fathers warned us about foreign entanglements. and warned about getting involved in wars that we can't win. When you think you're going to beat Russia, we lost in Vietnam. Really, right? Okay, and now Vietnam's our buddy, our friend. How long will it be till some of these other nations are our friends 10, 20, 30, 40 years later after billions of dollars and tons of lives lost, right? Anyway, I digress, except for I want to end on a comment. My son is a missionary for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. He's on his mission right now, teaching the gospel of Christ. So following the Prince of Peace. And he had a quote that I thought was really relevant that no one else is bringing up in this discussion. What we need is to turn to God. Here's what he said. The Lord is truly in the details. Trust God. Specific prayers receive specific miracles. And I think if we were to truly turn to God with this thing, and we were really humble and peaceful and really wanted to follow the Prince of Peace, we might end up advocating for peace. But if we're not very careful, what we do is we win the battle tomorrow, possibly, and Trump takes incredible news. Wow, he's the leader of the world, the art of the deal guy. But at the end of the day, there's going to be underlying hatred, blowback, frustration, to where I'm afraid we might win the battle tomorrow, but lose many battles later or lose the war later if we're not very, very careful. I know that was a long-winded summary of last hour, but I want Lew Moore, former congressional chief of staff, speechwriter, national campaign manager for Ron Paul, LewMoore.com. He's also a talk show host and more, to speak out on this topic. Welcome, Lew, and what do you think, sir?
Well, thank you, Sam. Well, there's a lot. You put a lot on the table there. I mean, I don't see any harm in talking to Putin right now. It is a complete cluster. It's all unconstitutional, as you pointed out. But, you know, you have to play things where they lay in politics. I mean, everything is somewhere. Nothing is in its ideal location, particularly when it comes to the constitutionality of our overseas entanglements. And I totally agree with you. We need to untangle as much as possible, but I don't think talking to somebody is a negative in any way. I don't see any problem about a meeting in Alaska. That's all a bunch of crap. There's reasons it has to be done. Some of it has to do with the International Criminal Court, which we do not recognize, thank God. And some of it has to do with security. I'm perfectly fine with him meeting at an Air Force base, perfectly fine with him meeting in Alaska. What they talk about, now that is something else entirely. But, and the fact Zelensky's not going to be involved, Zelensky's not that much involved now. And they have no leverage. Russia is pounding them to death. Ukraine is losing at least 5,000 troops a week. This is an unmitigated disaster. These so-called NATO allies that should be involved with the protection of Europe and helping Zelensky, they've all spent all their money on giving everyone in their country an 8-week vacation and total socialized medicine, cradle to grave, and they have not taken care of their responsibilities to protect Europe, to protect their own nations. And, so this is a total disaster. And, if we could get out of this situation without any more loss of life, without us spending any more money on armaments, without us committing to any unconstitutional acts with Russia, I mean, that would be ideal. And is that likely? No, it's not likely. But, that would be my ideal world, coming out of a very imperfect world, where things are laying right now.
Now, I'm convinced if we do negotiate, economically speaking, and we do say, hey, if you stop this war and Russia backs off to some degree or whatever else, I don't think we preserve the Ukraine at all. I don't think it'll be an end or a stalemate. I just think all we'll do is if we lift economic sanctions and do all these things, at some point we're just helping Russia build a great economic engine, a great war machine, like we helped China build over the last 40 years. Look, we built China's military to be a threat to the United States with us buying cheap products and the trade deficit for decades. And if we're not very careful, we'll do the same thing again.
Yeah, well, Sam, and I think you know this history very well. the war machine Putin inherited was also built by American corporations.
That's right.
And U.S. credits, 110%.
And so that's what I'm saying is if we negotiate with economics and we start to say, hey, we'll come to the table and give you this rare earths discussion and we'll deal with oil and we'll drop sanctions and we'll this and that. If Trump gives away very much or anything else in that regard, he's only going to build the next fight, right?
Well, it very well may be true. I don't even understand the rare earths thing, Sam. I mean, we're the country that can't seem to produce any rare earths because of all these environmental restrictions.
Go ahead and skip the break, please. Keep going, sir.
Yeah. I mean, we're not producing even 20% of our own needs in rare earths. So I don't really understand even the nature of that part.
Well, I don't know if he's saying he'll buy rare earths from Russia. I don't know all the details.
I think that would have to be that would have to be it. And of course,
I hate to be an armchair quarterback on this thing, but at the same time, Lou, I kind of think, when are we going to learn? Really, when are we going to learn?
I agree with that sentiment completely, Sam. I agree with it completely. And Ukraine is going to end up a neutralized state. It's going to end up to be, what Stalin demanded at the end of World War II, only we ended up giving him all of Eastern Europe. But his first demand was that all those states would be neutralized and not be free and not be independent. And that is what's going to happen to Ukraine. But a lot of it is the corruption of their own leaders, their own oligarchs. I mean, this thing is so complicated, which is why you were right completely. George Washington was very prescient to say, we need to stay away from these entanglements, 100%. I mean, it's always just a cluster when you get into it.
So I don't have a problem with Donald talking to Putin. I agree with you. And I don't even have a problem if they have a discussion in Alaska or at our military facility. I get the safety reasons for both leaders. I understand all that. My issue, though, is Alaska is contended by Russia. Russia believes that they should be having Alaska. So it's a very contentious place to hold a meeting, number one. And number two, I don't have a problem talking about anything. But having a summit to stop the war specifically and to leave Zelensky out of the discussions seems to me to be very foolish. You're sending a message to Russia, to Vladimir Putin, hey, if you want to get anything done in this world, you better talk to Donald first. Why is that the case? Why do we got to be the world's leader like that, the world's cop? Why does it stop and start with Donald?
Well, I'm perfectly fine with us being the world leader. I cannot stand us being the world's cop because we are not the world's cop. We are being exploited by multinational corporations that have nothing but ill will toward all of humanity, and we're their cop, which is how that's ended up to be. I think the idea is they're trying to establish some kind of a baseline with Putin, and they are talking to Zelensky, and they've already said they're going to have to bring him in. They're already talking about a second meeting. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I think Zelensky's a bad faith actor. Putin sure is shooting is a bad faith actor. And, this is a mess. This is totally a mess.
So here's the question. Is Trump a good faith actor?
I think in this regard he is. I think in this regard he is because he's trying to keep us from getting sucked in. We have 3 flashpoints for World War III on the planet, and the two that are least beneficial or in our interest to be involved with is the Mideast, which we possibly dodged a bullet
so here's
there,
the answer.
possibly
Quit funding
not.
And get the hell out of it.
Well, I'm totally with you on that one, and with Ukraine, I'm with you on that too. And the third flashpoint is Taiwan, and we do have a national interest in Taiwan because we've allowed them to create. Because we don't have chips, we can't have high tech without Taiwan at this point. So,
but if we're not careful, we're throwing Russia into the arms of China too.
Well, I think Russia and China have been in the, we may disagree on this, Sam. I don't believe Russia and China have ever been out of favor with each other going all the way back, but I'm kind of an extremist.
I agree 100%, but we have a chance to possibly influence people our way, but we're ruining those chances. So all we're doing is solidifying that pact already. You're correct. It's been in existence forever, but I'm saying you're ensuring that it never falls apart.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure if we're insuring or not insuring. The pact will not fall apart. And this is one of the reasons why you mentioned this in the open in this hour. Putin has a ton of leverage going into these talks, and it mostly has to do with China. That's why he has a ton of leverage. And
that's exactly right.
That's bad.
That's what I mean by we're throwing him in the arms of China. Now he's using these China-Russia relationships and possibly even North Korea without mentioning them. You've got this cabal here that Russia's the leader for right now, at least in the negotiations and stuff. That doesn't bode well for Trump. And when he's dismissed all of NATO, which I support, I think we ought to get out of NATO, not just dismiss him for these talks. But again, that's where we just kind of play games and tiptoe around the edges, but we never really make substantive, lasting change.
Yeah, and the other thing is, Sam, I'm not trying to make excuses for our president, but he does have to deal with some political realities. And I'm going to tell you right now, even the American people are not going to stand for Russia rolling across Europe. And so, this has been, again, another problem that our allies, so-called, over in Europe have not taken care of their own business. And, so they're all totally vulnerable. These militaries are practically a zero all the way across that continent. And, they're trying to address that. But, it is truly a disaster. I guess the question is, what is the best way to keep us out of Armageddon, to hopefully keep Russia from rolling across Europe, from keeping us from being entangled in all of it? And not an easy task, and I am not at all sure that our president is going to be successful with any one of those things. I mean, we'll have to see.
I think he'll get some temporary success. There'll be a lot of news, lauding him as the leader of peace. Trump basically said last hour in a clip that I played that he got us out of 5 wars. Do you know the 5 wars Trump's got us out of? Because I didn't think we had declared any wars. Not very smart. He'd help me.
Yeah, well, I didn't hear him say that. He has been bragging about the fact that the Congo and Azerbaijan and Thailand and Cambodia have ceased fighting. And my fear is we just handed them all a lot of money, which is what Jimmy Carter did to Israel and Egypt, and that so-called famous peace. Peace conference that we had in, what was that, 79 at Camp David. But anyway,
Liz,
I don't know the detail of any of those. Can you try to find that spot
where he says he got us out of 5 wars? Is in that clip I just sent you. See if you can find that. We'll try to play that. But even these cease fightings that you point to, those aren't wars that we've got out of. First off, I didn't know we were in them. And if we are in them and we didn't declare, is Trump a war criminal? If you're in a war that your Congress didn't say you could be in, at what point do you have authority to be in it while you obey the law, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's the case, Sam. But Trump may have way overstated his magnificence in the fact that they stopped fighting.
If you're in these
places.
5 places where there's war, and you're admitting they're a war, and you're there funding, training, arming, whatever you're doing, and Congress hasn't given you authority to be there, is it a war?
Yeah.
Is it declared? Do you have a right to be there? At what point can you violate our law plus international law?
Yeah, I don't know what to say about that.
Go ahead, Lew.
Thailand is the one place we might be funding. I'm not aware that we were funding anyone in these other conflicts that he was.
All right, so here's President Trump.
I'll be very proud to end this war along with the 5 other wars I ended.
There you go. He's on his 6th war that he's ending, buddy. Can you even name one of them?
But he didn't say he's ending our war we're in. He's just saying he's ending these wars, which on the face of it looks like that he has. I mean,
what wars?
I think that's
what wars did he end?
Well, there was a conflict between the Congo and was it Uganda? There was a conflict between Cambodia.
Hold on. Has the Congo and Uganda then agreed that they're not at war and they won't be at war anymore, that it's ended? Or do we just say it's ended because they're not fighting for a short term?
Yes, well, you're probably right about that.
Like if Israel takes over Gaza, if Israel takes over Gaza and kicks out everybody, do we say that war ended?
Well, the
it's been going
absence
on
of
for
conflict,
thousands of years, buddy.
Yeah, the communists always used to say that the communists used to always say they wanted peace, and their definition of peace was the absence of any resistance. So anyhow, I mean, I don't. There's a lot of there's a lot of word games go on. I'm
Well,
not.
we're
not
at
gonna
over
dispute that
130
either.
nations militarily speaking, so I appreciate that Trump wants to be the peace president, but if you're in 130 nations militarily and you've ended 5 wars that we're not even supposed to be involved in the first place, I want to know how we determine an end or a start of a war. Is it by declaring war? Or is it by the president's just flapping his gums? Or how do we know when a war started or a war's ended or whether we're in one or not?
I mean, his main point is that these conflicts where people are dying, they're not dying now, and I can't even verify that, Sam. I mean, I don't know.
I can't either.
But
but
first
even
casualty
would
of
Trump
war
get
is the
exclusive
truth.
credit for that?
So,
even if it
I
were
have
so,
no
does
idea.
Trump get exclusive credit for that, or does he just
I
take
have no
credit?
idea.
Because I think I ended all the wars. Lol.
The first rule
Or
of
Lew.
politics, Sam, is take credit. So Trump
Take
has,
credit
I
for
guess,
everything,
been
yeah.
in politics long enough now.
Well, since I'm the Trump advisor, and since there's peace, and since I've been telling Trump to follow the Prince of Peace, I think that the war's ended because of my advice.
God bless you, sir.
I mean, I'm a self-appointed Trump advisor, Lou. So, I mean, see what I mean?
Yeah.
And my son,
I
John
get it.
Bushman, said the Lord is truly in the details. Trust God. Specific prayers receive specific miracles. I think that relates more to what's going on here than anything else. Are we turning to
I'd
God
say
at all? Is anybody talking about God in these wars, or God to
Well,
avert
not
war?
nearly enough. Not nearly enough. And I'd say out of the mouth of babes, but your son is not a babe. He's a full adult doing, service to the Lord the way he sees it. And there's a lot of wisdom in what he said, Sam. And, of course, every problem we have, particularly with the Constitution, every single specific problem is because we haven't followed God. Every one of them. I mean, that's just a fact.
Anyway, yeah, my son, he's an adult. He's like 18, but he's a kid. He doesn't know much about politics or anything else. And he's just, but he has hit on who's talking about we need to turn to God if we want to avert wars. And if you leave that component out, can you really avert wars, Lou? If you don't turn to God, will you really avert wars?
Not for the long term.
That's what I believe. So Trump may win tomorrow. There may be just news piled on him from the high heavens of, Sam, you were totally out in the weeds. Trump's right. You were wrong. At the end of the day, I'm just convinced, even if you browbeat Russia into submission in some certain whatever ways, it's going to come back to bite you big, because you're going to anger Russia, China, North Korea, whoever else they can ally with. I mean, we've turned this into only a few nations decide the whole outcome of the world kind of discussions. It's insanity.
My only disagreement there is I don't think there's one chance in 100 he's going to browbeat him into anything. He's going to offer him enough that they can come up with some kind of deal, maybe, and that will be disturbing for the longer term, I can promise you. So, I mean, we'll see what happens.
So the browbeating word, you don't browbeat a strong man that comes from the KGB, right? That's your point, and you're right about that. I'm just saying, if he puts enough on the table to make him temporarily give, we're going to basically win today, but prevent a crisis tomorrow. I mean, create a crisis for tomorrow.
Welcome to American foreign policy, Sam. Yes,
I know, and I'm
totally
saying
agree
it's got to
with you.
stop, and I'm saying I thought Trump was going to be the guy to stop it.
Well, I mean, I think, you have to play things, you have to pick up the ball where it is on the field. And unfortunately, it's a total disaster. He could just say we're leaving all these countries tomorrow and everything, but all kinds of bad things would happen if we did that the public wouldn't stand for. So, it's not easy. It really isn't easy. I think overall Trump's got the right idea in his foreign policy, but I wasn't happy about Iran, not one bit. And, we'll see what happens here this weekend with Putin, but I may not be happy about that either, or you either, but we'll see.
Well, and I wonder one more thing about this whole discussion. When Trump has these meetings, Congress is on recess.
Except they're not on recess. That's another issue.
Oh, they're not? What are they on?
They're on a gimmick so he can't have recess appointments. That's in the whole other story.
Which means they got dismissed early, so they didn't vote yes to release the Epstein files, and they're supposed to be in their home districts doing things, but half of them are gallivanting around the world, and it's not a real recess, but they're calling it a recess, but yet they won't be back till September the 2nd. While Trump negotiates war after war after war, doesn't the Congress have responsibility for wars?
The basic responsibility, yes, sir.
Well, then don't they need to have an emergency session? We can say D.C. is an emergency, But what about this international discussions where Congress is simply checked out? And if Trump's going to spend any money, doesn't he need congressional approval?
Allegedly, yes.
I see. All right, hang tight. Lew Moore with me. Hour of Decision is an incredible program on the weekends. Listen to it on Liberty News Radio.
Pursuing liberty, using the Constitution as our guide. You're listening to Liberty News Radio.
Breaking news this hour from Town Hall. I'm Rich Thomason. The home of Alligator Alcatraz in the Everglades plans to open a second immigration detention center. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis says it will be housed at a state prison in North Florida and will be launched with 1,300 beds, although state officials say that number could be expanded to 2,000. Alligator Alcatraz, meanwhile, is the subject of a court fight. President Trump is warning his Russian counterpart of severe consequences if the bloodshed in Ukraine does not end soon. The warning comes ahead of tomorrow's Alaska meeting of Mr. Trump and Russian President Putin. And President Trump says he has spoken with Ukraine's leader.
We had a very good call. He was on the call. President Zelensky was on the call.
European leaders also attended the virtual meeting. The president said he hopes the Putin summit will lead to a second meeting between Putin and Zelensky.
It's going to be a very important meeting, but it's setting the table.
Zelensky told European leaders that Putin is bluffing about seeking peace. Donald Trump later warned of very severe consequences if Russia doesn't end the war. Greg Clugston, the White House.
President Trump says he will be asking Congress for more time, requesting an extension of federal supervision of Washington City Police Force beyond 30 days.
We're going to want extensions. I don't want to call national emergency. If I have to, I will. But I think the Republicans in Congress will approve this pretty much unanimously.
Some demonstrators took to the streets of D.C. yesterday, protesting the president's attempt to restore law and order to the capital city. Fierce storms pounded parts of New York and New Jersey, Delaware, and Pennsylvania last night. Flooding reported across the region. Watching Wall Street this morning, stocks are mixed. The Dow is down 98 points, while the Nasdaq trading 3 points higher, and the S&P 500 index currently 2 points in the red. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Hey, it's Mike Rohn. If I have a choice, I like to do business with companies that actually stand for something. That's why I switched from Verizon to Pure Talk. No offense to Verizon, I'm sure they stand for something. I just don't know what it is. Pure Talk, on the other hand, is a veteran-owned company that supports our military in a big way, and I appreciate that. Yeah, I also appreciate unlimited talk and text and plenty of data for half the cost of the big guys, and I do like being on America's most dependable 5G network for just $20 a month, but what I really appreciate is no contract, no cancellation fees, and Pure Talk's commitment to handle all their customer service in this country. I saw it for myself. I went to Georgia, I got a tour of their headquarters, I met their CEO, and I talked to the same customer service folks that you'll talk to when you dial pound 250 and say keyword micro. Switch today and save 50% off your first month when you dial pound 250 and say keyword micro. Pure Talk, a wireless company that actually stands for something.
Cybercrime is exploding. Take Sarah from Sweet Delights, whose world crumbled after having to close with not being able to bounce back. Small businesses are prime targets, but the right strategies can keep yours safe. Jay Hill, CEO of Network Providers, has co-authored The Cyber Playbook Simplifies Cybersecurity for Business Owners with Strategies to avoid costly breaches and fines. Build a strong cyber attack response. Secure your business with key protections. Cyber threats aren't slowing down, but you can stay ahead. Protect your business. Ensure its security for tomorrow. Get the Cyber Playbook today at networkprovidersinc.com/cyber-playbook or call 385-446-5500 now.
In the medical field, IT security is crucial. Our highly skilled consultants are HIPAA certified and have 20-plus years of experience servicing medical clinics, billing, and supply companies. We offer comprehensive endpoint protection, guarding your computers and servers against all stages of threats. And with our 24/7 monitoring services, you'll never worry about extensive downtime again. Ready to level up your IT support? Call 801-706-6980 today and discover how great IT services can be with managed IT services.
Experience the untamed spirit of the American West with Range Magazine. Each issue is a visual journey featuring award-winning photography and compelling stories that capture the heart of ranching and rural life. Stay informed on the challenges and triumphs of those who live and work on the land. Subscribe today and receive quarterly editions delivered to your doorstep, and join a community that cherishes the enduring legacy of the Western frontier. Visit rangemagazine.com to subscribe.
Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty RoundTable Radio Talk Show.
Lew Moore's with me, ladies and gentlemen. An incredible constitutional patriot that understands the landscape as we see it. And my goal really isn't to argue about the war with people that agree with me. I think Lew and I are on the same page for the most part. I think really what we're talking about, though, is our frustrations with how it would be so easy to move towards a George Washington-esque, Ron Paul-esque in modern day, humble foreign policy. And I'm just so frustrated that we're not there yet, especially Donald Trump. I agree that you can't just chop off everything overnight, but you can extract yourselves. There's ways to do that effectively. And I guess I'm just disappointed that Trump isn't doing so. You wrote a book, Lew Moore, Forerunner, the unlikely role of Ron Paul. And Ron Paul and Pat Buchanan and others were kind of the peace leading guys. Trump has taken a lot of the playbook, but not this piece enough in my mind. Yes, he's better than a Joe Biden for sure, but not enough. And let's finish on that kind of with your book, because I think it relates. How about the blueprint that Ron Paul set forward and that Donald Trump is kind of carrying the ball on? How does that relate to war?
Well, it relates to war in the ways that you've already articulated, Sam. I mean, a humble foreign policy is basically a George Washington foreign policy, which is, we take care of the United States, and we don't get entangled in all of these problems that generally stem from the large financial houses, from bad actors of every different type, and there's no upside. You can go back as far as you want with our interventions overseas. The upside was always achieved by somebody else, and we paid for it in blood and in finances, in debt, and
in hatred around the world against us as a result of blowback.
100%. And of course, in the era that I was referring to primarily, not exclusively at all, but primarily in my book, was the Iraq War, which was so senseless, which was just on every level a complete cluster and in the zero interest of the United States. But it was in the interest of Israel. It was in the interest of various financial houses. It was in the interest of other actors behind the scenes. And so off we went, and we were there 4 years, and $3 trillion later, we got nothing. Absolutely nothing, and the people of Iraq got nothing. And classic textbook example of an unconstitutional foreign policy and the blowback and the unintended consequences from it.
Now, here's what's interesting. Trump says this, quote, Russian-Ukraine war is Biden's war. And I agree things kind of escalated a little bit under Biden, but out of the last 10 years, Trump's had half of it too, right?
Although there really wasn't war when Trump was in there, but the table was set before Trump, and but no, actually there wasn't conflict when Trump was the president before. But and I do believe Biden's weakness, his obvious mental incapacity and the weakness of the people around him and the left-wing affiliations of the people around him pretty much did greenlight Putin for a full invasion. I mean, I'm sure that was at least part of the calculus. But, Trump now he's the president. You can't just say, oh, Joe Biden did everything. It doesn't work like that. So,
well, because he's funded and been involved quite a bit. I mean, he was on a phone call with Zelensky saying, yeah, what if we were to lob missiles straight into Russia?
Oh, my God.
That was a discussion that was had. So, anyway, I just look at this and I think, man, I was hoping more from President Trump. Here's my advice, because I'm a self-appointed advisor to Donald Trump, so you understand that, right? It's really important.
I do.
To understand, I'm a self-appointed advisor, so listen up, people. Here's the deal. Trump, what I want you to do, buddy, is shut down the Federal Reserve and get out of these foreign wars.
Amen,
just imagine
brother.
What America would be like, Lou.
I'm telling you. Yeah, well, a whole lot of our foreign policy problem stems from our central banking problem and our central banker problem, and that is just a fact. And we could slice and dice it with any one of these wars you want to name that we have been involved with back the whole 20th century and since.
Amen. All right, it's 10 miles square, but for some reason, not only does it rule over the United States with an iron fist, but it also rules over the whole world, it seems like, with an iron fist. The problem with that whole discussion, Lou, that I can tell is that they can't even get their own 10 miles square in order. Trump
We're talking about Washington, D.C. now?
Yes, sir. Trump administration is relying on a provision of the D.C. Home Rule Act passed by Congress in 1973, establishing local control of Washington. So he can basically take control, federalize it. He can do it for 2 days. Then he's got to notify Congress. Then he has 30 days. And Trump basically says this has got to be done. The law gives the president to temporarily take over the Metropolitan Police Department, White House official said. And anyway, Trump will basically direct federal agents to patrol Washington, D.C. 24/7. The White House announced. They say there's just too much crime. Now, I don't deny that there's a ton of crime there, and I support President Trump 100% in this one. He has every right to say, hey, the whole purpose of government is to protect life, liberty, and property, and it's not even being protected in 10 miles square that we have control of. Let's get our own home in order first. And that's personally what I think we should do. Get rid of the Federal Reserve, get out of the foreign wars, and let's start talking about America first. And let's start talking about, hey, if D.C.'s melting down, Trump's right on this one, and I think Congress will codify what he's doing.
Yeah, well, it is so far out of hand there. But, Sam, I'm telling you, I lived there in the 90s, and there was a supermarket 3 blocks from where I lived that Safeway owned, and they only kept it open because D.C. put a police station in the Safeway and put more bulletproof glass around that place than you could possibly believe. This was in the 90s. It's 30 years later. It's not gotten better. I mean, this place is a complete disaster. I mean, all the way around. It's just terrible there.
What do you think? Do you think Trump has the right to do this, number one?
100% he has the right. That's a federal district. And the
Amen.
Home Rule Act gave them a little self-rule or whatever, but subject to the Congress.
So hold on now. If Congress
right.
Congress is on their whatever hiatus, why don't we get their tails back in office, and why don't we say, hey, let's give the president authority to continue this as long as appropriately necessary? That's something that Congress needs to get done if it's their responsibility.
They have a lot of culpability in this. I mean, the Congress is just terrible on every level, Sam. And what I said earlier, side comment, they're not in recess because they will not allow Donald Trump to have any recess appointments. Thune and Johnson are working against Trump, people. I mean, any of you that think, oh, the Republicans, everything's so great with them. Even if you're a Trump supporter, you know very well that's not true. And so technically, I mean, they are flying all over the world. They're on all these codels. They're doing all this stuff. But they're technically not in recess.
Mike Johnson literally went and hung out with Benjamin Netanyahu right after he left early to stop it. I mean, it's insanity.
They're the worst. But anyway, so I just Sorry, Sam, I just had to bring it up again.
No,
they're not in recess, and they could be brought back, but no, they won't.
But the media is claiming they're in recess, though. So technically, they're not in recess, though?
Technically, they are not in recess. Somebody goes down to the House floor. I'm trying to remember. I think it's
what do they call it? A district work session?
Hours.
Is that what they're in?
Yeah, well, it's a district. It is called the district work session.
A district work session, and then you go down every so often, and then you say, hey, because I showed up here, it's okay, right?
Yeah, and I mean, that has nothing to do with the fact they're not technically in recess. They could be in recess and be in a period where they go back and supposedly talk to their constituents, which supposedly is a good idea. But in fact, they're marching people up to the well of the House and into the Senate and technically keeping these two bodies in session, technically, only to prevent Trump from dealing with like the 200 high-level appointees that the Democrats will not allow to be approved. And the Republicans are cooperating with them, and this is a stone-cold fact, not an opinion.
So here's the question. Why doesn't Donald speak out about this? We should be spending more time on this than we are on Zelensky and Putin, right?
This is a great mystery. I mean, there is definitely a reason for it, but he is not speaking up on it, so I don't know why.
Seems to me to me, that's more important. When I go to Washington, man, it's not a safe place. And we let it just all crimes being committed when we cruise through there. We're in an Uber and we make a U-turn, and then there's this crime right on the road. We're just like, whoa, let's bail out of here. Trump told reporters that federal control of the Washington Metropolitan Police Department needs to last longer than 30 days. I couldn't agree more. Do you think they'll get this cleaned up? On the other side, you can answer this, Lew Moore. Will they get this cleaned up, and will Washington, D.C. be better? And then the next question is, will Trump start going to other cities and trying to do the same thing? There's cities that are at greater murder rates than even D.C. We'll talk about it.
As you all know, Roe versus Wade has resulted in some of the most permissive abortion laws anywhere in the world. For example, in the United States, it's one of only 7 countries to allow elective late-term abortions, along with China, North Korea, and others. Right now, in a number of states, the laws allow a baby to be born from his or her mother's womb in the 9th month. It is wrong. It has to change. Americans are more and more pro-life. You see that all the time. In fact, only 12% of Americans support abortion on demand at any time. Under my administration, we will always defend the very first right in the Declaration of Independence, and that is the right to life.
Are you ready to stand up for your community and support your local sheriff? Join the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association and become a vital member of the Sheriff's Citizens Posse. At cspoa.org, we empower citizens like you through weekly webinars, arming you with the knowledge to back your constitutional county sheriff. Together, we can uphold our Constitution and ensure liberty and justice for all. Your community needs you now more than ever.
This is a battle between truth and deceit, a battle between forces that would enslave this country in darkness, and between a media that wants to present you with the truth. We are being censored. America's news outlets no longer provide the truth. 90% of news outlets in the United States are controlled by 6 corporations. The mission of the Epoch Times is to chase the truth, to ground all statements in fact.
TheEpochTimes.com. All right, I asked a question to Lew Moore right before the break. Do you think that this is going to work in D.C. to stop the crime and clean up the city and make it a great place again? Are we going to make D.C. great again, Lew?
Probably not, for 3 reasons. This is temporary, and yes, temporarily, it will do a ton. But the policing theory in D.C. is wrong. It needs to be the broken window theory that Giuliani put in New York, which means if you do anything wrong, you go to jail. That's how you stop crime. Secondly, there's not enough line officers. They don't have anywhere near enough officers out on patrol in that city. And third, a ton of them are DEI hires. That's three, starting with the chief, who was the DEI officer before they made her the chief. And she's a moron. I'm just being blunt, Sam. Sorry, I don't know how else to do this.
Amen. But what about, what's the third one?
That's it. That's the third one.
And that's the third one.
And so I'm not highly confident. You know, there's generational problems in D.C. and they're not going to be fixed overnight, if at all. And sorry, I don't really think
they're not as multi-generational problematically as the wars we're talking about. But yes, it's long-term problems there. Why don't we do this? Because I'm an ideas guy, and I don't like to just be on the radio and complain. I like to provide solutions. That's why I said, Trump, shut down the Federal Reserve and get out of these wars. I want to give, great advice. Since I'm an self-appointed Trump advisor, I want to give great advice to President Trump. Here's my next advice. Why don't you just have a sheriff in D.C., okay? And you could think of it like a county, and you could just have a sheriff there. And the sheriff, which would be elected, could run the thing.
Well, I have an idea that might trump your idea, and I love sheriffs, so I love your idea.
I love it. Sure.
But I'm with Senator Mike Lee of the state of Utah. We need to give all of Washington, D.C. to Maryland, which also cuts the Democrats off at the path in terms of their wanting statehood, and just leave the Capitol complex as a federal district, which is already armed to the teeth, and I mean beyond armed to the teeth, and the rest of it can be under the jurisdiction of a county in Maryland, which then could have a sheriff, and so that's a long-term solution that deals with several different issues. And I mean that's not automatic that the crime will go down.
I need to learn more about this, to be honest with you. I wish I knew everything as a talk show host, but I just don't. Why do they make it 10 miles square? And I think shrinking it's a good idea, but why do they make it so big in the first place? I mean, they never expected it to become a populace of a state for all intents and purposes anyway, right?
Well, it used to be twice as big as it is now. It used to be a square, and if you look on the map, to get the square, you have to add Arlington, Virginia, which they gave back to Virginia, so there's a precedent for this. When was it? In the 1950s? I don't remember exactly when, Sam. But anyhow, half of the old district, the original district, was given back to the state of Virginia. And I would argue to get regular order, so to speak. I mean, in other words, the Congress has done a terrible job. One more example. And there's too much politics with D.C. And I don't know if a sheriff of a county or whatever contiguous counties would be involved with this plan, but it would make the rest of D.C. like the rest of America, and it would also take away their electoral votes and prevent them from becoming a state, which Mike Lee just came out with this plan. It's not a new plan, but he is backing it to the hilt and is going to really push it. And so I think it will have several beneficial aspects. Whether that will get the crime under control long term, man, that's a heavy lift. I don't know about that, but
all right. I think you're right, though. I think what we need to do is say, hey, why do we have this big old district that's federal? On one hand, it's federal in nature. Congress doesn't really, take care of business like they're supposed to. So they tried to make it locally controlled, and now Trump's taking it over. And I mean, it's kind of like the Indian reservations to some degree. It's just like we don't know what to do with them. We don't solve the problem for good. Lou?
Totally like that. It's very much like that. Yes, sir.
All right. You've heard of people throwing shoes and cell phones and stuff in concerts, and people are sick of it and everything else. Then you've heard of people throwing stuff in riots in L.A. and everything else. We've seen all kinds of photos and everything else. But a guy threw a sandwich at a cop in D.C., got caught, charged with a felony after throwing sandwich at federal officer in D.C. Your news with this piece. What do you say to this one, Lou?
Well, I mean, I think there might be some context here. My understanding is this was part of one of these ICE protests, And I have no time for that and no patience for it of any kind. And, what they should be charged with, I don't know, but it wasn't just some random act of a kid pulling a prank. That's not what it was. And a lot of times they throw stuff at them. They don't know what's in what they're being thrown at them. And they're trying to terrorize our police. We cannot allow this. And so I
think
don't know
being
all the
arrested is
circumstances
great.
here. But
we can laugh about it being a sandwich. It's kind of funny. But I think this is a real issue. When you're a little kid like 3, you're taught, don't throw stuff. You can hurt people. Don't do that. Okay, that's like a 3-year-old, 2-year-old lesson, isn't it, Lou?
Totally.
And we're really dealing with this at grown people in public spaces and dealing with the police? This is not a joking matter. Now, the media wants to kind of mock it and go, it was just a sandwich. Come on. I'm saying this is the tendency that we have to go to riots and violence and hatred. And we're turning America into a war zone if we're not very careful. I think they need to crack down on that sucker and say, look, you don't throw anything at cops or people for that matter. I don't care if they're on stage and they're a celebrity or a cop or who. Don't throw stuff. 3-year-old lesson, people. Is anybody speaking out about it like I am?
I haven't heard anybody, Sam, but I am with you 1,000%.
It's insanity. I get that it's a sandwich and you go, was it bologna? Okay, no. Wait a minute. This is criminal acts. And yes, a sandwich doesn't hurt compared to, a shoe or a marble or, a steely. I don't know what, but I'm just saying we can't be tolerating this stuff, people. You can't throw things at people. It's assault and it's going to stop. So anyway, my whole point is I think Trump is right about this. And I think you're right about this zero tolerance, crack down, get it done, broken window theory. Hey, man, we're not going to tolerate this garbage from you guys. You can hate the cops and want to defund the cops all that you want to. When you want to run away from the cops, when you attack the cops, when you're beyond civil disobedience, people. You're beyond what they would call protests or whatever. You have the right to peacefully assemble. That's it. All right, before the end of the hour, I want to get to these Texas Democrats. They fled to stop the redistricting. It turns out they folded like a bad... Yeah, they just failed. Redstate.com, Banshee with this headline. They just folded like a bad poker hand. Banshee is who wrote that over at Red State. They said, well, we made our point already. This is going to be not only in Texas, they're going to win this and redistrict and get probably 5 more seats. This is going to affect states all over the country because Newsom's threatening to do so in California. What's your take on the whole thing, Lou?
The whole thing is we've had a totally unfair system, and the Democrats have gerrymandered unbelievable in many of these states, and the Republicans have not played it nearly as tough. So I'm glad Texas is finally doing something, although I'm very skeptical of the governor and some of the officials there. The Speaker of the House was elected by Democrats in a coalition. He's not even really a Republican. So, I'm not that amused by that. But the bigger fish to fry here, Sam, is we need to redo the census. California has way too many congressional seats because of all these illegals. And plus, they've also admitted they use different methodologies in states like Utah to short the number of people in red states. So it was rigged. The census was rigged. That's the first thing that needs to be fixed. And then, but I'm all for...
Well, that would be proof of election fraud if the census was rigged, though. That'd be hardcore proof of election fraud, sir.
I'm telling you, Sam, the proof is there, and it's not hard to find it. So anyway, but I'm all for the Republicans doing what they can. I'm not applauding the Texas that much because they could have kept those guys there. Anyway, it's a long story, but I'm glad they're. If they move forward, I'll be glad for it.
Well, in their defense, at least the Republicans, by letting the Democrats do this, the Democrats wanted to get, quote, national coverage for what they perceive as a wrong. To me, what it really did is let the Americans realize how rigged it really is and what lengths they'll go to rig it. And now that they're being challenged on it, really, now we have multiple states in the mix, and many of us realize that it's time to redistrict and kind of be fair. Charlie Kirk's kind of been famous for saying, hey, the Democrats can't stand fair elections. I think that's really the point.
Yeah, it's certainly a point. And, there's always going to be the legislature should do it, which means it's going to be political. And I could go into why I think that. But the Republicans have got to be as tough as the Democrats at minimum, period. I mean, unfortunately, we're in partisan warfare here. So,
yeah, but they're not, man.
I'm
The
all for
Democrats are ready to just basically throw you in prison. We're ready to just tell you we're going to lock them up and then not really follow through. So I don't like the Republican mojo. I think they talk a lot. They don't get a lot done. I mean, we're 10 years on Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama literally creating a lie, Russiagate. It's been 10 years, and now we're talking about, we're discovering new stuff in the last couple of days? What? Trump had 4 years to deal with this, didn't he? Plus now 9 months. He's almost had 5 years of the 10 years to deal with this since it happened, and nothing's really occurred.
Well, we'll see. It looks different this time, but the jury is out on this time.
I pray you're right, and I pray that we really get something done, because I think that Americans need something to gain some trust back, Lou.
Yep, I agree.
We need something to get trust back. All right, my friend, I appreciate you. Thanks for all your take on all this stuff. And
appreciate you, Sam.
We got to pray for peace is what we got to do. That's the most important solution I know of that you and I can actually do.
Amen, brother.
Thank you, Lou. All right, Hour of Decision is available every weekend on your favorite talk radio network, LibertyNewsRadio.com. Lou's a hero, ladies and gentlemen. He's been standing up for liberty for a long time, and he's got some incredible insights. That's why we draw on him at least monthly or as often as we can on your radio. Thanks for being alongside for the ride. Check out lovingliberty.net, our nationally syndicated network, their iPhone or Android app, or listen online at lovingliberty.net. God save the Republic.